Hey guys, thank you for coming to my channel, my journey. I'm Jamie, your host. Got a little bit of a different setup. I'm actually not doing dishes at this time. Um, Yesterday I tried. This is like my second attempt to record this video. Um, the first attempt was a failed attempt, miserably failed attempt on trying to get it done. Microphone for some reason messed up going into my phone, so um but the setup is different. I'm sitting in my dining room and figured do this. Give me some more space. You can hear me without the water running. But I will be going back to doing dish videos and storytelling and all that tomorrow night. But I got my little trusty dusty microphone here and I got my phone set up. Okay, so um this video I was gonna do is about me, about my life. And I'm not gonna go into details about everything, but I will touch on a few things. Um, like you'll know, like my food addiction, my past addictions other than food, and kind of give you like a spiel of what uh, my life was like growing up. Okay, so I was born in 1986. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and uh, for the first couple years of my life, being a kid, you really don't know much, really don't notice much. But when I was younger, I do have fond memories of my pawpaw at the time. Um, you know, One of the first actual memories I have of myself that I can truly remember was going outside, out back. And when you live in Baltimore, unless you live like out in a little bit of suburbs or like kind of like in a not the so much of downtown part, you didn't really have a backyard. Houses were like this close together, and our backyard was like 90% concrete and like 3% grass and dirt. Well, I don't exactly remember what happened, but a piece of glass got in our backyard, and I found it with my foot, and it was like a piece of glass that was like that long, about that long, stood about that tall, went to a point, and it went right in the bottom of my foot. And after about 10 minutes of digging, they finally got it out of my foot. Went to the emergency room. They just did liquid stitches. They didn't actually do stitches in itself. Another memory I had when I was younger, I broke my arm. We were jumping down on the bed, me and my cousins, and I kind of full gainered off the bed, and I landed and I broke the little bone in your forearm, and this one up here. And then I fell down the steps because I was so scared, took off running, and I broke 3 places here, like right here in this part of my arm. And was in a cast for a good bit that I belonged for a long time, I can remember. And then, witnessing probably the last time I ever saw my papa. He We're at one of my cousin's birthday parties, and you know, I was sitting on his lap, and everyone started screaming and losing their minds. So I really wasn't paying. I was playing. I was watching TV. My pawpaw was having a heart attack. He started gripping me real tight and everything. And at the time I didn't know it, they said he probably was already dead, but they were able to resuscitate him like quite a few times in the ambulance. And went to the hospital later that day. Went home and I never saw him again. And at the time, I was told he went to bed. He had to go to a nurse, a permanent doctor's facility. Kids weren't allowed to go see, or something like that. And we went to, they did his funeral. I didn't go. I was young. I stayed at one of my cousin's house, the whole time. And yeah, this is not sponsored by the way, but this stuff right here, Prime, good shit. This tarp though. Okay. Well, after that, me and my mom kind of bounced around um, place to place after everyone pretty much moved out of the house we were living in. My nana moved up here into Huntington, and that'll be a little later in the story. Me and my mom bounced around with like my aunts and my aunt and uncle and a friend of hers. And then she got together. Now, I'm going to try to not say names because I got so comfortable doing this video last night I started saying names. But the man she was with was asshole number one. Sperm donor that's pretty much self-explanatory. But I met him the first time. I actually remember meeting him. I was like 4, I think. 3 or 4, I do believe. But he really wasn't in my life. Still isn't in my life. But we ended up moving into an area, kind of like a suburb of Baltimore called Brooklyn. Not New York, Maryland. Just throwing that out there. And it's kind of like what you would call like the housing projects. A bunch of apartments together. And this was a big apartment complex. I mean, there was like over, I think, 1,400 apartments. They range from like like an efficiency apartment to like a 3-bedroom apartment. And there was apartments that started at like $50 a month at the time, up to like $350 a month. And that included electric, phone, water, and cable. So sorry about that. But it's like basic cable. Don't yell at me. I know, not the best thing in the world. But I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done with everything. Dipping and smoking. It's just, this story is going to really get to me. So, living there, I did have a lot of fond memories, to be honest with you. Riding my bike, watching just TV, chilling, chillaxing, and everything. But it was also a really hard time. And what I mean by that is we did not have food in the apartment really whatsoever at any point in time, except for maybe 2 weeks out of a month. And the reason why we didn't get food stamps, if you hear wrestling very much, and all that, have old WCW going as background. There was a store, and it wasn't like a chain store. It was like, kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like a local store, but it was huge. Like, it was like the size of a Kroger or Walmart or Meijer or wherever you go. It's like, no, not like Costco or Sam's or anything, but, like Walmart, Super Walmart. Not Super Walmart, but the like regular Walmarts before they became super centers. And it was between the 1st and the 5th, from the 1st to the 5th of every month, $10 of full buggy groceries. And all they would do is they would scan one item, bring it up as $10 for a buggy. And the max you can get was 3. And at this time, my mom and asshole number one, I never really didn't pay attention to what they were doing. I know if they were selling drugs, what have you. And, but they always came up with enough money to put gas in the truck, pay the rent, and then do that grocery shopping trip. Now, how we would break it down is like cupboard shit, like canned stuff, box stuff, peanut butter, anything like crackers, anything like that. Next one was like freezer and refrigerator stuff, like your frozen meats, your lunch meats, your milk, eggs, all that. And then the third buggy was more like the breads, the snacks, the chips. Sorry, I thought someone was calling my leg. We have spiders here, so make sure. But, and then, they would pay, it'd be no taxes, $30, what have you. But my mom and asshole number one would share with the neighbors. Now, I didn't know if the neighbors helped pay, like gave them money to do it, to be honest with you. Because it didn't like we were getting anything specific. We were just getting shit to put in the buggies. If I wanted it, they got it. And that's what I noticed. That was the type of stuff that stayed in there. But a lot of times they make dinners or something, they'd go to the neighbors, you know. And, you know, the food only lasted maybe like a week or two. And there were sometimes we didn't get to do that. There was a time a pack of hot dogs literally lasted me 2 weeks. And what my mom would do, well, a little bit, about 2 weeks, she would cut the hot dogs in half. One was for kind of like the in between like breakfast and lunch time frame, and then the other half was like a couple hours after lunch, a couple hours before bedtime, and that's what I would eat, you know, for like about 2 weeks, and then we would do that. I mean, to give you an idea how broke we really were, I didn't really care. I didn't really understand it. I lost a tooth. I know it's kind of like, well, now my teeth are jacked, but I'm gonna be getting that fixed in the future. I lost a tooth, and my mom made sure I got some kind of money, and there was 2 pennies and aluminum foil under my pillow, and I cherished them pennies. I'll be honest with you, I did. And after a while of it being really rough living there, it was just Baltimore was just a bad place. Where we were living in was bad. It was fights all the time, drugs all the time, any type of stuff like that. So what we did was we ended up getting in contact with my grandmother, my nana, and she lived up here in Huntington. She actually lived. Here's the funny thing. I lived for almost 5 months 3 blocks away from my wife. So that was pretty crazy to think because the house is still there. And we lived there long enough to get back up on our feet and everything. And my grandmother had met I'm going to call him my grandfather because he was a grandfather to me for a very long time in my life. And we ended up meeting him and this guy. And to be honest with you, man, it freaked me out at first. I've never seen anybody without any limbs before. And this man lost both his legs to cancer. So he come rolling in a wheelchair like nothing. He's like, hey, he shook my hand, hugged me, and everything. And then I met my aunt, Nancy, through him. That was his daughter. And this woman sounded me. She was a big woman. Like one of my followers on this channel is one of my best friends on this planet. We've been best friends since 1999. I mean, not best friend since then. I mean, I've known her, been friends with her since then, but best friend, she's been my best friend for a very long time. When I first met her, I couldn't stand her. She knows this because she's a little butthead, but she knows what I'm talking about. This woman was a big woman. And, she was so sweet, smile, light up her room and everything. And when we arrived, I was so hungry. They had made dinner. They made hamburgers and French fries and stuff like that. I ate till I threw up. After I threw up, my grandmother was very upset. Mainly at asshole number one because he never really did anything to help us out. My mom tried to work, he wouldn't let her work. And true colors start coming out farther into the story. After I got cleaned up and everything, we were all just sitting around. I was sitting with my nana. I loved her to death. I missed her to death. And we ended up living with them for about 4 months till we got up on our feet. Well, Grandpa owned property over in Proctorville, which is like right across the bridge from Huntington. And he put a trailer on the property, got it hooked up, ready to go, brand new trailer at the time. Well, it was in good condition, I should say. He got it from a buddy of his, which that man knew everybody in Huntington at that time. He was a well-established person here. And not because I'm off here or nothing. He was really big around here. And he also he owned a big lot of land, like a huge lot of land. And what he was doing was he was building building a house for them on the other side of the property. So what he did is he took a modular home and was building onto it to make this huge house, all handicap accessible. He was going to pave the driveway and everything. Well, that never really came to fruition, but that's later on down the line. Well, my mom and asshole number one decided to get married. And she married him really for the wrong reason. She wanted me to have a dad. And she had to have paperwork with it. And I guess it's mainly for taxes, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest with you. But after they got married, that's when true colors started coming out from asshole number one. He was very abusive to my mom. He was very verbally abusive to me. One, a lot of, I mean, a lot of things happened with in between the family that really divided everybody. Like Nancy ended up moving with her brother and his partner to California. And, you know, Grandpa he was married at the time, but his wife at the time, I guess, told him to move on. Go ahead and move on. And he did with my nana. And she sadly ended up passing away from some kind of cancer. And I never met her, but I heard about her. And then they ended up moving into this big ass house up on this, what we call Millionaire Hill here in Huntington. It's with Ritter Park. For the sole purpose of a lot of the houses up there are expensive houses. And, they ended up moving up there. They didn't build the house on the other property. They used it for storage, though, for a lot of stuff. And then I got a dirt bike, which was in four-wheeler, bad as hell. I ended up almost killing myself with the four-wheeler, though. That's to start my whole back issue, neck issue. But we used it for storage, like tools, dirt bikes, four-wheeler, all that type of stuff. And Grandpa said it was okay. And go back to the prefect a little bit. I got a four-wheeler, and I was driving around our property, and I went to make a turn, and the steer column broke. Well, when it broke, it snapped, and my thumb got caught on the throttle. Went up the side of a Jeep. Got a piece of plywood. I landed on my stomach like this, and the four-wheeler came down, and the handlebars popped me right in the back of the neck. And it pinched, and it broke my back, and it pinched my neck, the nerve in my neck. And for a while, I'd walk around like this, or something and that really started, like, ever since then, my back and my neck had never been the same. But, we had horses, went to the fair, demolition derbies, we went to NHRA drag racing in Bristol. And, like, I know my mom, I'm gonna give you a disclaimer. My mom was a wonderful woman, sweet as can be. She had a lot of faults. I'm not saying she was perfect, but she was my best friend for the longest time. If I didn't have a friend, she was my friend, to be honest with you. And, she was working a lot with Grandpa and his company to help keep it running and everything and all that stuff. So that's what she was doing while I was living the life of a kid. Trying to, anyway. And I never really had any friends. Never really hung out with anybody. I was around adults most of my life. Never really got a chance to really just go to a friend's house for sleepover. Except for asshole number one became friends with this mechanic, and he owned a garage, and he had a son who was my age. We were actually in the same class. And, he became my best friend for a couple of years. And, that's when it really the stuff was really hitting the fan then, because that's when everyone started getting addicted to cocaine, pills, weed. I'm a weed advocate, but at the time, thinking about it, a lot of the money he was getting or borrowing went to that. So that's why I was kind of against it for a long time. Or his cigarettes or beer or whatever. And it made him violent. And the first fight I can remember, now some stuff's going to be foggy and I'll tell you why here in a minute. That we were eating subs, and next thing they were they were laughing, throwing subs at each other, and asshole number one got up, pinned my mom down, started doing like that to her chest, and she was screaming to get off. He was telling her, "Shut up, you effing be a bitch," blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And the old school latch file cabinets, the carrying file cabinets, the plastic ones, full of papers. I just picked it up on my mic, whack in his back. He turned, looked at me, went back to my mom, whack in his back, and I ran out the back door of the trailer because he was going to come after me. He was going to hit me too. And if everything finally settled down, I guess they had a talk of something, whatever. Everything's finally settled down, I guess. And, I was at school one day. I came home, and my mom was like, "Hey, you want to see something funny or disgusting?" And she's holding a tooth in her hand. And she said, "Oh, it just fell out." When I was able to understand stuff, he had hit her in her mouth and knocked her tooth out. So, yeah. The last big fight before everything really went south with this shit was he was saying shit to my mom, and I threw water in his face. Well, when we got into cigarettes, he got pissed. My mom said she's taking money out of my piggy bank to go pay for it. And he was stealing money from me anyway, selling my TV and shit like that to get money for cigarettes and drugs. And this is stuff I was getting for like birthdays and Christmas presents. Sorry, something stuck behind my tooth. And he was on top of my mom on the couch smacking her, and I grabbed a baseball bat hard as I can, cracked him like right here, and he just kind of went like that and kind of fell into the floor. My mom got up, I ran next door. She ran outside in the middle of the driveway, told him that he's going to kill my mom, and I thought he was. I wouldn't exaggerate. I thought he was. I was young. And the neighbor, sweet lady, gave him her address so they could show up. He got on his motorcycle he had and took the fuck off. And they couldn't find him. Because Parkville didn't really have exactly the biggest police force, and they still don't today. They mainly rely on help from the Ohio State Troopers or the Orange County Sheriffs to help. But we were getting ready we were starting to pack up our station wagon ready to leave. And here he comes bawling ass down the driveway on his dirt bike, and like 3 inches from me, it almost hits me. He would have killed me if he would have hit me. Well, my mom said, I mean, she was gone, but I can't repeat a lot of stuff she said. Because it was bad. Well, he ended up packing his shit and going back to Maryland. And after about a month or two living there, nobody helping him, and mommy and daddy weren't taking care of him no more, he's begging my mom to come back. Well, she said, shit's going to change. You're going to quit being an ass. You're going to quit hitting. You're going to quit being violent. I'm going to kill you if you do. My mom's going to kill you if you do. And you're going to sleep in your truck. Y'all, for 3 months, this man slept in a single cab pickup truck in the wintertime. Deservedly so. He should have died in it, but, Well, he was finally allowed to come back in the house after, he, I guess, changed his ways. No, he didn't. And this is how I know. There's a lot of stuff on but I'm trying to, go over stuff I truly remember happening, or trying to have have a memory of it happening. And one day we went out to get something to eat, and being a kid, you sneak a fry out of the bag. Well, I had a tendency to overdo a little bit, and and this is when I kind of know now as an adult looking back at that's when I started my food addiction to like help with pain and being scared and everything, because I was constantly trying to eat whenever I was upset, or I was just like in my mind just keep eating. I don't know if it was subconscious or when we didn't really have food, it just didn't really click. But being an adult, I think that's where a lot of my food addictions came from. Well, one after that, he went to get fries out of the bag and noticed that I had eaten. He got a large fry, I got a small fry. I didn't pay attention to what I was eating out of. And there's like 5 fries missing. And I guess he noticed it. And that dude, he got pissed. He was pissed. He was just staring at me while we were eating. And I went to take a bite of my burger, and next thing you know, I felt this on the back of my head. It was him. He clocked me in the back of my head, and I just kind of went to the floor. Now, at the time, I was really small. I wasn't a big kid at this time. I weighed maybe 50 pounds, if that. This man was 5'11", about 255 pounds. Okay. He punched me in the back of my head, knocked me on the floor. Punched me in my face, punched me in my mouth, punched me in my ear. Kicked and stomped on my stomach, my chest, my back, my legs, my neck. Which seemed like for hours. It could have been like a minute or two. Just like the sudden, just like like Floyd Mayweather just light my ass up. And he goes, "Man, fuck you, little punk," or something. I can spit. Like I can hear him spit. But I was like, and the last thing I remember truly seeing was seeing his feet walk out the door and the door slamming shut. That was my mom. I was fading in and out. Blood was dried on my face, coming out of my ear, out of my mouth, out of my nose, out of my eye right here. My body was starting to swell up from just getting stomped on. And I heard the phone ring a couple of times, and next thing you know, I heard the front door open, and I heard my mom fucking scream. What? And I didn't realize this motherfucker left me there for like 2 days. Never showed back up. Was out of the house for 2 days. Left me there to die. Yeah. Took me to the hospital. Doctor gave my mom a long list of things. She said that I had a concussion. I had ruptured something in my ear, which I was already partially deaf in my left ear from my eardrum busting. That just fucked it all up anymore. My nose was broken. He had hit me, and I guess it sliced my gums open. I had a big pus pocket there. He had bruised my chin bone. My back of my neck had a bruise. I had bruises up and down my spine, on my bone, my muscle. He had bruised a lung. Broke 2 ribs. Bruised the muscle and bones in my legs. I mean, this dude just kicked the dog shit out of me. And, after about a week in the hospital, after CPS cleared my mom of truly any wrongdoing, which she didn't do nothing wrong, to be honest with you. She's working. And she didn't know this was going to happen. They made her sign a divorce paper thing there to get him away from us. Some kind of restraining order, I guess is what it's called, and all that. And that was the last time we saw him for a while. He had ran and hid with friends in Proctorville somewhere. Like he ditched his bike. The mechanic, I think for sure, hit him and tore his bike down. And basically scratched all serial numbers off and stuff like that. Went up on top of the hill, when I was beat all to hell, my grandmother was truly pissed. Nancy had came back from California, and my grandpa was pissed. They were going to go find him and kill him. And I'm not joking when I say that. I'm not exaggerating. My grandmother had her pistol in her purse, loaded, ready to put bullets in this mother person. I'm trying not to cuss as much. But it took me a while to heal up, and it took me a while to trust people. But like the one guy I truly trusted was Grandpa John. Um, you know, and after about a year of living in that house, we ended up moving to Leon, West Virginia, which is right outside of Point Pleasant, where Mothman's from. You know, the Mothman Festival that happens every year. It's like kind of like a huge deal around here, the Mothman. And this was one of my most prized times in my life, and also the saddest too. I'll be honest with you. The reason why it was one of the saddest, one, my grandmother passed away in her sleep in that house. Woke up to my mom screaming that that Nana had died, and I saw her dead, going to the ambulance. They tried to keep her covered, but she was stiff when she had died. She was already stiff. She passed away, like sitting up in you, and she just like fell back. And Grandpa John was sitting there rubbing her hair and everything until they came and got her. It was pretty heartbreaking. I was just so mad. I was so mad at that. But before that, this was a time I went outside and played all day if I wasn't in school. This school time, I was the fat, stinky kid. My mom was working all the time. I didn't know how to do laundry. The few times I tried to do laundry, just a bunch of shit happened, really, to be honest with you. But it was also me and my mom bonded so much in this time. Because when I was out of school, I was helping them with their shipping goods that they were, boxing, labeling, shipping. And I became the king of Tetris. And what I mean by that is Grandpa John owned one of the big ass Lincolns, 88 Lincolns. And I was able to fit more boxes in the trunk than anybody else could without crushing anything. And we lived there for quite a while, even after my nana passed away. But going to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, going to the YMCA every day, eating Tudor's biscuits, and just living a kid's life. Like going outside playing Nintendo, watching NASCAR, watching football, playing my wrestlers, my cars, listening to music. I had a huge ass sports car collection I would always look at. And they were always buying me baseball cards, football cards, basketball cards. I mean, anything that was a sports traded card I had. I had some good ones too. Some of them ended up actually having to sell so we can have money at a few points in our lives, but that's not really part of the story. Then Grandpa John wanted to move back into downtown Huntington, but we couldn't move with him because where he was wanting to move at was just one bedroom, and we ended up moving from West Virginia to Virginia. We ended up moving to Lexington, Virginia. Now, if you're a college football fan, I know you've heard of VMI, Virginia Military Institute. This is where the school was located at, really. And this is actually my first actual remembrance of dealing with Walmart. It was like right down the road from our apartment that me and my mom eventually moved into later on. Sorry. We ended up moving with my aunt and my cousins, and at first it was amazing. I was living with my cousins. We may not got along all the time, but we got along. Had common interests with wrestling and everything like that, music, laughing, and then it became bullshit. like a lot of times living with people. Um, my mom was trying to work. My mom was working her ass off. My aunt was being a dumbass, and my cousins just didn't like me. And anytime I'm like, man, I can't wait to get our own place so I can have my own room, they would go tell, oh, he said that he wants to move out now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I didn't, so whatever. So she would always talk shit on the phone to her sister, her brother, even though they were my mom's brother and sister, but it was her sister, her brother, and everything. And then we finally said, you know what, screw it. Grandpa sent us some money to help us get our own apartment closer into the town of Lexington. Ended up changing schools, so I ended up having to make all new friends, which it really was pretty easy, to be honest with you. I was on the football team, so I guess that kind of helped. And, with, living there was kind of like, all right, let me give you full disclaimer. My mom had me when she was young, okay? She was 16 when she had me. At this time, she wasn't very old. She wasn't very, very old still. She was still in her 20s. And she started hooking up with guys. One guy she hooked up with was an ass. She would forget about me at my bus stop when I was trying to stay in my one school until the end of the school year. Then that's when I had to transfer to the new school so I can get on a bus and actually be in front of my house, being dropped off. Leave all the apartment anyway. And she got proof food stamps, like a good amount of food stamps. I mean, those are the paper food stamps, not the card now. And I went to Walmart one day, and the cashier helped me. She was so sweet. I don't remember her name, but I remember her. And they let me, this is before the lock buggies really became a thing. And they let me take a buggy to take my stuff home and everything. And got it upstairs and got it up in the fridge. And my mom was crying. She was like happy tears. She was pretty cool. And then it started getting really bad financially. My mom was working all these jobs. They were all part-time. And everything was going to bills. Or she's paying for her boyfriend's shit. It was just like that type of thing. We were having to go to food pantries and all that stuff. And Nancy and her brother really reamed my mom's ass on the phone one day. And they didn't understand exactly what was going on with the situation until she finally told them to shut the F up and listen to what's going on. And they're like, oh, we are so sorry. My mom was pregnant at the time. So Grandpa John ended up coming to our apartment, and we packed up clothes and bare minimum things. I had all my wrestlers, my sports cards, and stuff in my clothes. My mom had all her clothes and toiletries and stuff, but anything else, Nancy, we ended up moving to Woodbridge with Nancy. And now this is one of my most treasured moments in my life, living in places. We moved in, and Nancy didn't realize how bad it was. She thought my mom was just pulling her chain. I'd asked Nancy if I can go to the bathroom, if I can make something to eat. And she goes, why are you asking? I told her, I was like, well, that's what I had to do with the other aunt. And she goes, are you serious? Go eat. Whatever's in this house, you are welcome to eat. Go to the bathroom. My God, and it was that situation. It was that type of situation. And this is when I met one of my subscribers here, probably one of my most loyal subscribers, because, her being my bestest friend in the history of life. I met her. I first didn't like her. She's a brat. She was a brat. Such a brat. But, I eventually ended up loving her to death. Loving her more than most things on this planet except for my wife and kids. And, it's like to the point where she's been in my life so long, I'm in love with her in the sense of, I'm in love with her in the sense of she's one of my best friends. I would do anything for her if I can. But she knows she doesn't take precedence over my family here. And, she, there's a lot of memories with all that. Like, one of her dumbass friends, who's a piece of work now, for sure, set her own damn house on fire. Damn near wrecked the whole trailer park. Like, damn near killed everybody within, like, 4 houses of hers. She was a stupid dumbass. Because she was a thug and she had a lighter. Trying to blame that shit on me saying I gave her the lighter. It's like, no, bitch, I never gave you a damn lighter. Yeah. But this is when I met one of my best friends. I don't talk to him anymore now, though. But he was like a brother. He was always at my house. I was always at his house. And what I mean by, but the reason why this was also a hard time is we lost my sister. Not long after we moved to Woodbridge. My mom was working at a deli. And they think the stress of everything caused something to happen with the baby, and my mom lost it. And the woman she was working for held a memorial service at her house. A bunch of people showed up, was very supportive. We didn't ask for it, but they gave us money to help us with any financial issues we were going to have, because my mom took a little bit off work. And the boss told her, you're going to have a job when you're ready, but this is money to help you for now. And when after that happened, my mom changed. Understandably so, because this was the second kid she lost after me. We lost one when we lived in Brooklyn, but it was like a miscarriage. No, she lost 3. Sorry. Lost that one. She had a miscarriage with another one in a hotel room. Yeah. And then she lost my sister. 2 sisters she lost. The other one we didn't know. No one knew what it was. But she had to put it in a baggie and had to take it to the doctor like the next day after she lost it. Yeah, this is... Oh, okay. Then after that, school, I got made fun of a lot because I was a fat kid. And they were saying I always stunk or something, which I don't know. Well, then me and the subscriber name she was at my house every Friday night. We would actually plan that day, the Friday starting. Monday, we would start playing out that Friday if she wasn't doing anything with other friends. And it was usually her coming over, reading letters from one of her, I guess, pen pals or boyfriend at the time. I don't know what you really want to call him. And eating dry ramen noodles while she did, sitting on my back while we're watching TV. Or we'd have a couple friends over, we'd sit around just listening to music, having fun, just being kids. To show you how much her mom loved me, and I love her mom to death to this day. That was like my second mom. My first second mom. I have another woman that's like my second mom now that I call mom. She's actually a subscriber too. But she watches my videos, and I love her to death as well. But her mom was like my second mom. And Nancy, my mom, and this subscriber's mom were always just so fond of each other. They're never fought. They always, come over, smoke cigarettes. Cigarettes. Yeah. The good cigarettes. And when she would get grounded, the subscriber, our trailer was the only house she was remotely allowed to go to until she had to be home at a certain time. I'd walk her home, and I would talk to her mom and everything. And her mom, I guess, loved me to death. I loved me too. But they always, even when we moved, my mom and Nancy always talk so fondly of her mom. Because she's a very genuine, sweet woman. She really is. Now, the friend is one of the most amazing people on this planet. She was there for me through a lot of shit. My mom, one thing she really didn't know was at the time I had met a girl. We got together. We had relations. And when she ended up pregnant, that started a big ass thing between me and her parents. And she ended up losing a baby. And here recently is when I really allowed myself to mourn and accept that she would have been 21 this year. I think, yeah, 21 this year. Crazy to think, right? And, this is when I skipped school for the first time, living in this trailer park, and I wasn't very good at it because I got caught twice. One really wasn't my fault because Mom and Nancy had to get up and leave early, and I didn't call and tell them anything, to be honest with you. And this is also when I started getting into the computer age. Really didn't know how to use a computer. I taught myself how to work on computers, how to type. I went from chicken pecking, like 2 words a minute, to being able to type like 68 words a minute now. I know it's like nothing, but compared to someone who never really knew how to use computers, but taught myself, to continue to teach myself anyway. And this was in the age of, they had a Super Nintendo, and they were buying games for me to play. I was playing Super Nintendo, obviously, loved it. But this is when I started getting into the internet phase. That's actually how I met my first real girlfriend, was through the internet. And she was another teenager. We ended up meeting, and, worst mistake of my damn life, to be honest with you. My friend Jesse was always around. Then the subscriber, like Amanda, her name's Amanda. She was always there, loved, and I had a friend named Brian. He would have friends come over, which they weren't that nice to me, except for a few. Were like one of his girlfriends and all that. They were really cool with me and everything. And I had my group of friends that truly cared about me, And, that was a really hard time in life because I was getting into drugs. No one really knew it. I had, and my mom got really sick too. Like one day, she looked at her toes and one was purple. I was like, she was freaking out because she was a diabetic. She knew she was diabetic. But she went untreated for so long without her taking medicine or anything. That's about another thing I contribute to her losing my sister, to be honest with you. And I was like, you said you kicked the bed. Maybe it's just a bruise. Well, it turned into something worse. Eventually, she ended up losing half her foot and having to have a stent put in her leg and a stent put in her arm for dialysis, I think, and to help blood flow. And she became completely dependent on everybody. She tried to drive one time and couldn't do it because it was her driving foot's the one that was cut in half. I ended up driving her to a doctor appointment one time, and that was fun. But my mom emotionally and mentally just took a big ass got her ass kicked, losing my sister. Turn around, my grandmother on my sperm donor side died. They were actually pretty cool. And, you know, it came time, it was my 18th birthday. I finally turned 18. And it wasn't long after my 18th birthday, we ended up leaving. We had to start packing everything up, and we ended up moving back to here, well, back to Proctorville. Because Grandpa, John, and Nancy's brother were both very sick. Grandpa John ended up getting cancer back after fighting it for so many, being in remission for so many years. And her brother had a very bad illness that took the life of his partner, and he himself ended up having it. And, well, that hair is crazy. What the pull that? You're going to see something I normally do with a grab it. I'll leave it be for now. And Jesse ended up coming with us to help us move, and we ended up sending him back. Without him, it would have been hell to move. I moved a lot of shit by myself. But her brother ended up having some people, caretakers at the house, that was helping us move stuff into the house. And it was so stressful. Me and Nancy butted heads, and she ended up smacking my hand. And that was the one person on this planet I think would do that. Ended up going to live with sperm donor in Baltimore for a little bit. And I was trying to get back to Woodbridge. Tried any which way I could. I tried to ask I was going to send a letter to Amanda and her mom to see if I can come live with them, but sperm donor ripped the letter up and threw it away. So that didn't happen. Well, after living with this bullshit for a few months, we finally came to head and butted heads on everything. And I ended up coming back to Proctorville. Not long after being back, Nancy's brother had passed away. We ended up selling everything off, taking the money, had a big chunk of money. Some of it went to his partner, Grandpa John's partners that were still alive. And the rest of it went to us, basically getting a house, paying like 2 years rent. Furniture we didn't have to worry about because the house we were moving from, we had all the furniture. And it was me, Mom, and Nancy, and then she went off her damn rocker completely. Got this guy who was abusive towards my mom, verbally abusive, not physically, but verbally. He tried to kick. He'd say he was going to kick my ass, he never did. And it ended up just coming to blows that Nancy wanted us out. And I look back at it at the time, I hated her. I was so mad at her. I really was. But she was in the right frame of mind either, to be honest with you. And we ended up moving in with one of her friends, and that was just god-awful experience. We ended up, my mom ended up getting like a real bad health scare and ended up in the hospital for like months. And I met these people who were in from Kentucky because a mutual friend and family member was in a real bad car wreck in Cyersville, Kentucky. And I ended up becoming really good friends with them. And my mom was like, why don't you go live with them for a little bit? Get away from this house. I was like, can you promise me you'll be safe? And she said, yeah. No. Horror stories like that bitch made my mom go into DTs, which is withdrawals from her morphine medicine, because they were stealing it. They were taking the pebbles out of it, swallowing it, and putting the capsules back together. Yeah. That bitch is like if I can make a hit list, that bitch is number 2. For sure. But I ended up living in Kentucky. I ended up living out some of my dreams. I'm not going to go too much into it because I don't like talking about it, to be honest with you. I became like a really badass weed eater and landscaper basically. Met a lot of great people, a lot of great families, but butted heads with one guy in that family because he was a dumbass. Just throw that out there. And then my mom, we found out where my mom was at. She was in the hospital again. And I called and I was like, my mom's name's Lisa, last name. She there? Yes, thank you. Click. And my mom said she needed me. That it was bad. She talked to the people I was living with. I got my last bit of pay from all the jobs I was working. I got about $5,000 altogether. A pretty good chunk of change. I ended up giving the people I was living with like $1,000 for like gas and like whatever. And stopped and got a few cartons of cigarettes and dip and everything like that. Came back here and they ended up leaving after a while of visiting. And my mom said that she was going to lose half her leg she was going to have like 5 inches below her knee so they could put a prosthetic on her. What had happened is that her bone was so brittle when she went to pivot to go sit on the toilet, it just crumbled. And she showed me her foot. When she lifted up, bone fragments was just like oozing out the bottom of her foot. It was bad. The foot ulcers were terrible. Like they were going like deep into her heels. And she had her surgery, and we were there, and we ended up going back to the woman's house, and they were trying to get at-home health care for my mom, and this woman was protesting it because she didn't want nobody in her house, but the bitch didn't want nobody in her house because she had no running water. And if that was the case, she'd lose her damn kid, who was a little asshole to begin with. So was her damn daughter. And she was just the biggest piece of shit I ever met, to be honest with you. And my mom had another episode where she passed out, short of her breath. They thought she was having a heart attack. They rushed her to the hospital. While we're sitting there in the ER, this bitch had enough nerve to call the hospital, call a caseworker, say, I don't feel safe with her son living with us. I want them both out to now. They ended up sending my mom to a nursing home. I ended up going to live with a neighbor of theirs my mama became friends with down the road. This bitch called the housing authority, which she was living under some kind of assistance, and said that she had me living there. And they were going to be there in 5 days to make sure I wasn't living there. After about 2 days of fighting with this bitch, got all of her stuff. Got all of her stuff out of her house. Every bit of it that she put in trash bags and just tossed out like it was garbage. Like I said, F her. Well, I took my clothes and I took some first aid stuff, survival stuff, and I walked to the Mission, the homeless shelter, and ran. One day, I was stopping at a cigarette shop to get a pack of cigarettes and a drink, and I hear, what are you, oh my God. It was Nancy. Never been so happy to see someone in my life. And I explained to her, I was like, I'm homeless, mom's in a nursing home. She cried. She pissed. Oh, she was pissed at that woman so bad because that woman promised to take care of my mom. Nancy needed time to get her shit and priority straight. Well, later that evening, after we parted ways, Nancy dropped me off at the Mission and everything like that. After we parted ways, about 10 o'clock that night, I go out to smoke my final cigarette before they shut the door. Whoever was working that night, depending on who it was, they let you go out a little bit after lockdown. They'll let you smoke. There was Nancy. She goes, pack your shit. You're coming to live with me. Not permanently, but we're going to get you on your feet, help you get a job, get you an apartment, get you set up and everything like that, which she did. Then I lost my job, couldn't afford it, and I didn't know I could just put down that I wasn't fine. I didn't have any finances, and my rent would have been zero. My power bill would have been zero, but didn't know that. Ended up going back to the Mission. And after this time, I was there for about a month or two, and I became friends with this guy. His name, I'll call him Taco. That's what he was called, is Taco. And him and his girlfriend invited me to come live with them in their apartment that they were getting ready to get. Hell yeah, I'll come do it. We ended up all getting jobs at one call center. It was fun. This is where I met Robin. She was a friend of theirs. And we met through them. At first, me and her, we became best friends almost like instantly. She was with a piece of shit dude at that time. And she ended up breaking up with him. And she hit the jackpot. And, she just became my best friend. Like today, she's still my best friend. And after about a couple months of knowing each other, being friends, we finally started dating in August of 2006. Got engaged in September of 2006. And my mom became fond of her. Totally fond of her. And then 2006, my mom turned 37. 8 days after her birthday, she passed away. Her birthday was on the 4th. She passed away on the 12th of that year, of December. And she didn't die peacefully. She suffered. She was blind, deaf, and so much pain. She couldn't see. She was catatonic, basically, I guess you can call it. And with the last breath she took, she had a seizure, bit her tongue in half. You didn't see it, but when her head finally fell, blood came out of her mouth, and that was the last image I had of my mom. Minus going back and seeing her, they had her laying down and seeing her. They tried to tell me that, not to really look at her face because you could see blood kept pooling at her lips because her mouth was filling with blood from biting her tongue. And I literally lost my shit. I completely lost my shit. We ended up going home. I called Nancy and said, "Hey, Mom just died." I was like, they told me there's nothing else I could do there. If I asked them if I could go ahead and go home. I just didn't want to be there anymore. And me and Nancy, worked to get everything for cremation and all that there. And that was a really long depression I battled through. I really wasn't sleeping, really wasn't eating, and Robin was there every step of the way, And later that year in 2007, after I finally started coming out of my funk and everything, we got married on November 3rd. And then we found out later in 2008 that we were going to be having our first child, which was Aiden. And that little dude, now not so little, but that little dude, he really changed our life. He really did. My best friend. And he's my partner in crime, And, don't worry. You got a second drink. This is going to be spit bottle. Because I'm done with cigarettes now. I just need to parent off for this. And with that, I got a job at Sem Lim. I worked there for a very long time. I worked there from the time Robin was pregnant with Aiden, way into her pregnancy. She had him in March of that year, of 2009. Started working for them in November of 2008. And by January 1st, I had made over $5,000. I constantly fucking worked. Just building up money for the baby and everything. And, I was there long enough that Aiden was walking. They got me on a dumbass beer sting to a woman. What it was is I didn't ask for ID, which is with a woman I've asked for ID plenty of times. This is one time I didn't. And I guess, it was like a setup, I guess, because they instantly fired me. Someone else in the same company failed the same thing. They kept him. And it was like the 4th time he failed. This is my first time I ever failed anything. Well, after that, in 2010, I had a rough road. I became a shit husband, a shit father. And this is not them. No one's saying it but me. It got so bad to where I take responsibility for it. I had a thing called paranoia something. And it was like once my paranoia went, I just fell asleep. I was watching Aiden while Robin and her dad went and got some food. and he got out of the house. Could have been a lot worse than what it was. I still beat myself up to this day about it. To this day, I still beat myself up about it. But the neighbor was there. Robin threatened to kick me out. She did tell me to get out. And then when I told her the only place I had to go to mission, they kind of like cooler heads prevailed, I guess, for a little bit. And I'm going to the doctor and found out I had all types of shit wrong with me that I didn't even know what is in existence. PTSD, schizophrenia, depression, homicidal, suicidal tendency, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on and on and on. And I got the medicines, the proper medicines I needed, and I started coming out of a lot of it. And when I say I was bad, dude, let me tell you something. I went from being 276 pounds to 524 pounds. In like a really short amount of time, because I was constantly just eating junk. I never really ate food. I ate junk all the time. Never showered, nothing like that. Hoarded like trash. And it's just one of those things I didn't know what was going on. Now I don't do that at all. I'm not even close. To give you an idea, we have a little shelf thing off the camera on this side. Has cookies, it has chips, and then mainly for the kids. That shit still wouldn't be there after we bought it. I would have done ate all of it. I guess I do divulge in a cookie or two, and maybe a handful of Cheetos, but that's just because I'm in the final stages of weaning myself out of junk food completely. Well, after everything settled down and all that, I started finding more purposes in my life and everything, get my life back on track and everything like that, so I can be a better husband, a better father, so on and so forth. Well, I had found a few jobs here and there. Robin mainly worked a lot because she was working with her cousin, cleaning houses. So, I would do what I do now. Clean the house, cook when I could, do laundry, make sure Aiden was good, school and all that. Well, I didn't get my license until I was 27. I've been driving for a little under 10 years. So, but after we got a car, I'll do possibilities in this. I started working for Amazon. I worked for Amazon. I worked for a few jobs here and there, Marshall Stadium, all that. And then 2015 happened, and we found out we were pregnant with little mama, Delilah. And I went to a place called Results. Now, I told them they were called TLK Group at first. And to be honest with you, they turned me down the first time I put an application in with them, which I understood. They didn't know who the hell they were. And that was like a big no-no if you didn't know type thing. But the woman, the senior recruiter gave me a shot. And I was there for quite a while. I became friends with all the management. I was friends with all the agents. I became a mentor to the new agents coming in. I was a trainer, everything like that. And I ended up stepping away from it because, not what I mean by trainer, I mean I would help with the training classes. Not a lot in the sense of some of the senior agents did. But when I got moved up to the 5th floor, I helped out a lot with that. Then on the 3rd floor, I really didn't do much with the 5th floor. I did do a lot. I worked a lot with the training class for some reason. And, I would, go product knowledge and, and stuff like that. And, I was good at it. I was good at my job. Never really got in trouble. I had from the December 2015 to April 2018, I had 107% attendance rate. Never really missed at all whatsoever. I think the longest I missed was a week. That's basically unpaid maternity leave for me, because we ended up having Delilah July of 2016. And then some stuff happened in mine and Robin's life, and we hit a rough patch. Well, we fixed it. Not Not going to divulge because it's no one's business. But we just had a little problems. And, you know, 2018 was really a year of reflection, I guess you want to call it. I try to get my life back in order, try to fix myself mentally. Me and Robin were good. Kids were good. Ended up working for Amazon for like 9 months. Went back to results after I was done with AT&T and Amazon. And then I got fired from results because it was something that wasn't in my control at all. And so I worked for another company that was a call center place. It was kind of hard. But then Robin's dad, not going to divulge too much in it, but he got a real bad health scare. He almost didn't make it. And he's still struggling today, but, he's alive and kicking. But then the pandemic happened. And at first, the pandemic, and like West Virginia was like the golden state because we were like the last state to ever have a confirmed case. And the pandemic happened, started working home jobs with that same company. Ended up losing my job with them. Went back as a temp like 4 different times. Found this one job. Then I started working for a company called Ibex Global, which honestly I liked it at the time, and then I didn't like it. I was working for Google Fiber or something like that, and the company Google Fiber was great to work for, but the Ibex itself wasn't that great to work for. And then, no, I ended up leaving that job. Started working odd end jobs like Lifeline Screening. The same company I worked for before when the pandemic hit, and then this time last year, some shit went down inside the family, and we ended up moving where we are now at the beginning of the year. And we've been here since. And it has been probably one of the biggest rebuilds of our lives, to be honest with you. Because we basically started with enough to get us going. And now we're living pretty good. Kids are so happy. Me and Robin are very happy. Mentally, there are times I have my days, but all in all, I couldn't be happier. So, that's pretty much running the mill of my life story. I know it's kind of a long video, and I want to thank you all for being so patient and watching all. I hope you made it through the whole thing. So if you made it to the end of this video, please do me a favor. Like it, subscribe, leave a comment, and definitely leave a comment if you want. But share the page, get it out there, say, hey, this is, Jamie, he is great, he's talking about his life, I guess he tells great stories, I was playing. But yeah, definitely get it out there, know someone might have had the same life run as me, and they can relate, and, I can help them build back up if they need it. So, so I guess 1986 to 2022, they're almost 36, over 36 years now. You guys pretty much get to hear about my life. And this is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. I never even made this on the 3rd Gen channel. So this was a video I've been wanting to do, and I'm glad I did it on this channel for you guys. So I love you guys. I'm going to go do some dishes. And until next time, I love you guys. God bless.